female friendships. The truth is, the way in which emotional labor inequality plays out in friendships, including when they're same sex, is very, very similar to how emotional labor inequality plays out in heterosexual relationships. Except that in friendships, especially where it's like same-sex friendships, the person who's benefiting disproportionately from all of the emotional labor that's being done disproportionately by the other person cannot hide behind the excuses like, oh, but you're just like better at this stuff, which is obviously what men do a lot in straight dynamics with women. They pretend they're not good at emotions as a way of like constantly benefiting from the constant labor of the women that they're with. But in same-sex friendships, what you see is the cultural devaluing of this kind of work, and then in conjunction with that, the cultural devaluing of the people who do this kind of work. I don't know whether any of you remember the book Quiet a few years ago that was written by Susan Cain. It basically made a case for the fact that we had totally decentered introverted people, when introverted people have developed all sorts of traits and skills as introverts that we all really could stand to benefit from. But because we live in a society that obsessively centers aggression and dominance and the loudest voice in the room, we totally ignore and devalue the person who's on the sidelines of the room, even if they have extraordinarily useful contributions, like they're very astute at observation, they're very thoughtful, they're probably the reason why everyone is in the room in the first place. They convened the freaking thing. We're back to labor and power. Specifically, we're back to the way in which we get gaslit within this current patriarchal, capitalist, racist society. We're told that if you're useful, if you're providing a useful skill or trait or attribute, you'll be recognized, you'll be remunerated. But that's not what ends up happening. What ends up happening is there are people who are really good at providing essential labor, who provide it, and then society gaslights them and tells them that their work isn't useful or valuable or even worthy of being seen. That's what introverts suffer from, and that's what people who do a lot of emotional labor suffer from. And in friendships, it's specifically ironic because people who do emotional labor are the reason why a friendship survives, or a friendship group even convenes. Obviously, ideally, in a healthy friendship dynamic, everyone is doing emotional labor because emotional labor is necessary, again, for the survival of that relationship. But in a lot of dynamics, because we are used to seeing these very toxic, unequal emotional labor dynamics, one person is doing everything and the other person is benefiting. Even more specifically, one person is seen as less than and does everything and takes the high road. And the other person centers themselves, thinks they're in power, and takes.
I mean, she wasn't lying, was she? Listen, today we're talking to you guys about whether women take on the more emotional labor in a friendship with the opposite sex, men, myself. Do women take on more of the emotional labor when it comes to friendships? And I really want to have this conversation. I'll have Sean on in a few minutes as well to discuss this topic as well going forward. But I thought it was a good conversation because I think when we talk about emotional intelligence, we've been speaking about it for the past few weeks, talking about how we analyze, how we, perceive, how we understand, how we reason with emotions. We've been speaking about this for the past week or so. And I think it's a powerful topic because friendships, relationships, they're built upon these principles when it comes to how we reason and perceive and understand emotions. And as that young lady was just describing, talking about how some people become the major laborers in a relationship and a friendship, that they keep the friendship going by providing that emotional attachment, that emotional connection, that work that gets done emotionally. People oftentimes find themselves in a poor exchange when it comes to dealing with this aspect of conversation. So I wanted to have myself and Sean discuss this first because I wanted to discuss it from a male perspective point of view. And I see some ladies are obviously in the chat as well. So I will get you guys, ladies, on a little bit later on to discuss this as well. I think from my perspective as a man going forward, I just think to myself that in relationships, I can be somebody who can be okay with the emotional labor to a degree, because my dismissive attachment will only do so much. I'm a kind of person that first and foremost will, whenever you need me, that's when you go and get me. You know what I'm saying to you? And when you get me, you can get me to 3 or 4 hours just listening, talking, having conversations. When it comes to the regular, it's always getting deep. You're always in a situation. You're always being emotional. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You might not get as much from me. You know what I'm saying to you? You might not get as much from me. But what I would say is that going forward in the situation, when it comes to talking about some of the deep things that are happening, the emotional stuff that's getting you, some of the stuff that is affecting you, I can be there. I can do the emotional labor. I can do the emotional work. It's just the day-to-day stuff. So the question I'm asking is, do modern women bear the emotional load in a friendship with men? I think going over my past experiences, some women have in some of their friendships, but the friendship doesn't last long anyway, because I struggle to stay in friendships long enough to be able to decipher that. But I think that in the modern era, yes, women do. I recount some of my earlier relationships, and I think coming back to some of my past relationships, thinking about how I would dump certain things, and I would be more comfortable dealing with women because of some of the things I was thinking and some of the things that are going through my mind. So in some respects, there are some aspects of truth is that some women are bearing the emotional load. I think as you become to mature and you become more aware of your emotions, become more aware of yourself, become more aware of who you are, become more aware of what you bring to the table, and how also as well that you fit into a dynamic when it comes to a friendship. You start to realize how much work needs to be done, and you choose whether you want to do that work or not. I think I find myself in a space where if you talk to me, the role that I end up usually playing in the emotional labor is usually the counseling role. And that's where I usually fill in the emotional labor. If you've spoken to me before, you're going to get a deep conversation, you're going to get some counsel, you're going to get some words of wisdom, or me just listening to you. And that's my emotional labor, and that can be quite draining. And sometimes I can't do that regularly every single day. That's just, I'm going to tell you to get it together. You know what I mean? And I don't expect it to be done to me every single day. I don't need it every single day. But it's just something to think about. And so, I do feel like when some of us as men have, and as the lady actually clearly said, sometimes as men, what we can do is, I'm not very good at the emotional stuff, and then we use women as the counselor, the punching bag, the emotional punching bag, or the emotional dropping bag. We can drop our bags with you. The person who filters in where some of our boys may not necessarily filter in. It does happen. I won't deny, I won't say it's not true, I won't say it doesn't happen in real life. Those things do take place, so I won't deny those thoughts. Now, I want to play another video, and then we'll discuss a little bit more as well. This is a video, it's quite interesting.
So when we're talking about emotional intelligence, the thing about men lack emotional experience. Women grow up dealing with their emotions more than men. So that is the reason that they mature at a faster rate than men, right? See, women are more equipped to deal with the low-level details. Men are more of the high-level concepts. So when we look at the difference between the type of jobs that men and women go, is based on their emotional intelligence. So you as a man, when you learn how to deal with the spirit of yourself, then you can deal with your woman correctly, right? The problem is we get angry because we don't know how to identify the feeling. Are you jealous? Is this a jealous NGG that you putting out? Jealousy is when you see somebody have something and you don't want them to have it. You want it for yourself. Envy is when you don't want them to have it, but you want it as well. Right? And sometimes you don't know when you're being jealous or envious of your brother or your sister. But see, that emotional intelligence allows you to identify those factors and those flaws and bring them to light.
I mean, the music was a bit mad and dramatic, but that's what TikTok will do to you when you go and get the videos. He eloquently put something in place, talking about how, as men, we need to come into a knowing of ourselves. Because when we come into a knowing of ourselves, what that allows us to do is also to be able to identify some of those emotions in other people as well. I think that's really key. right? Because in reality, when it comes to relationships, I found that the more that I'm in tune with myself, the more I'm able to identify in other people. The more I became more acquainted with emotions, the more I became acquainted with, my higher self, if one will call it that, right? My more healed self. I was able to identify things in other people, and I was able to hold more space for other people as well. I think that's just one of the key things in that respect. Like that, when it comes to trying to hold space for women in those friendships, you do have to elevate yourself. If that relationship is to be one of equality, you're gonna have to elevate yourself. And when you elevate yourself, what tends to happen is, again, you bring other people up to that level. And as a man, if you choose to accept it, and if you choose to accept it, you should be able to also rise to that level that that woman is also at, which is your quote unquote friend. I think I remember back to some of my friendships when I was younger, and like even my best friend, that's a woman as well. I look at some of the conversations we've had, and I'm not always, again, that's probably more the attachment style. I'm not always there. You know what I mean? Like she has her own girl group. I'm more there for those conversations that need to be had. We're going to talk about God. We're going to talk about Jesus. We're going to talk about career. We're going to talk about boyfriend, girlfriend. When she needs advice on what's happening in a relationship, she'll call me and discuss it, and vice versa. And so that in that space, I find a lot more of my emotional labor in, right? And I'm cool with that. I don't mind it. And and spending more time with her in the past also made me more conscious and more aware to be in that present moment when it comes to being sharing some of that emotional load. I think that is a key thing first and foremost, right? Is starting to become aware of where you're needed and how you can fill in. A lot of times, like I said, I take a more counselor role. So when I was like talking to my friend, my female friend, the reason why we got was because she always allowed me to be me. I didn't have to be in attendance every single day. Although at the beginning of our friendship, we spoke every single day. We literally did because it was in university, and we spoke pretty much every single day. And it would just be conversations about different things, different ideas, God, this, that, blah, blah. And so there was a lot of interchange. She was one of the few people I can actually give my energy to. A lot of people I found myself I couldn't give my energy in that space to. And so I think that in itself is a testament to when God wants to bring two people together. But I would say personally, and I can't bring to my final conclusion. I'll let you guys come on if you want to come and have your say. Because Sean decided that he wanted to tell me to come on. He ain't here. Sean, where the frick you at? Okay? Because you called me out to come on. I'm going to do my little thing. He ain't here. But I would say that personally, that when it comes to emotional load, it should be shared, and when it's not being shared, you do have to communicate. So if you need more from that friendship, you do have to communicate. Like people get frustrated and annoyed, and then they want to just disappear. Like I'm not getting what I want. I'm not getting what I want. And it's like, wait, you can't just get what you want. You have to communicate that to somebody. You know what I'm saying to you? Like if you want more from myself, if you want more from myself emotionally, you do have to communicate that so I know, right? Because, and I think Jay said it, low maintenance is beautiful, right? Especially for those of us who are dismissive, we love a low maintenance friendship. It just makes things so much more easier. It makes things so much easier. So it'd be a lot. You know what I mean? It'd be a lot, Connery Adamukin said this conversation presupposes grown men and women can be friends. Yeah, that's a real question right there. Can they be friends? Alrighty, let me get it shown up. Yeah, that's a good question. Can they be friends? That's a good question. You're asking the question. Someone said, I'm gonna bear the emotional load in the friendship. No siree. No siree. Yeah, I won't do it. Okay. Mr. Don't Play said no more, not taking no more women friends until further notice at max capacity. Listen, I hear that. I hear that. I hear that. I hear that. No.
Why is it that when women are annoyed, you have to ask them 10 times what is wrong until they finally say, okay, this is the problem. I say, what's wrong? And they're like, nothing. I say, what's wrong? And they said, oh, no, nothing. And I'm like, I know something's wrong.
Do you know what it is? With women, they tend to be really emotionally intelligent. So if we know that what might upset you, so we kind of know, okay, this might upset you. So we assume if you cared about us, you'd know. And so because we think emotional intelligence is natural, we forget that men don't have that. They don't always think from somebody else's perspective all day, every day. They're not mind readers. So we think that if you loved me, you would know. In our minds, so if we have to tell you, you must not love me, but that's the wrong attitude, women. You shouldn't think like that. Effectively communicate what you need to be said, because otherwise you create distance and you create frustration in your partner. But we as women think if you loved me, you'd know. And when we have to tell you, we feel like we're weakening the connection, but really you're strengthening it. And so, yeah, it's a stupid technique.
I mean, that's one of your own ladies who said that. But again, goes back to my point about communication being a main quintessential point. Okay, we're going to go back to this question. Do women bear the emotional load in a friendship with men? I guess first and foremost, we need to talk about our experiences as men, about what we've experienced in a relationship or a friendship with women as well. Welcome, Sean, to the conversation.
What's up, bro?
It must be me. I can't hear you, but I think it's me, bro.
You can't hear me? Can the chat hear me?
I can hear you now, bro. Go for it.
You
I
hear
don't
me
know what
now?
happened there. Yeah, I don't know what's
Okay.
going on there. Sorry.
Yeah, man. Well, I think the young lady, first of all, in that video that we just saw, she used the wrong term. I don't think women have better emotional intelligence than men. I think women are probably more empathetic. They have more empathy than men do generally. But I don't think, especially after we broke down what emotional intelligence is, I would say that's not the case. Are there a lot of women that do exercise emotional intelligence? I'll give her that, but I don't think it's more than men, because that's a skill that you really have to practice and really get good at. Um, and I don't think it's like one sex is born better at it and does it naturally than the other.
I hear that. Definitely. I definitely hear that. That word, empathy, probably a better word as well. I mean, what's your experience then with the opposite gender in terms of friendship? What's your experience?
Oh, we were saying it the other day, and listen, I love having friends that are women. You get that different perspective, and they add so much value, but it's work because there's certain times, just like what she said, is sometimes you got to be careful with certain things. You have to remember special occasions. If you forget a special occasion, you might just get yourself in a little bit of trouble. Now, do all of my women friends expect me to pay when I go out? Not necessarily, but I kind of just do for the most part, you know. But it's not to say that I feel taken advantage of, because I don't, but it's just something extra you have to think about. You know what I mean? Uh, so yeah, there's work, because it mirrors different aspects of a relationship, like a non-platonic one. So there are times where you feel like you are doing all the relationship things without all the relationship benefits.
Mm,
So it can get
yeah.
like that.
It can, and look again. I want to also, back up what you're saying. Friendship with women is a beautiful thing. There's so much things that you learn and so many insights that you get from being friends with women. I was out with a friend a couple of weeks ago before I came to Ghana. Managed to get myself a new aftershave. You know what I mean? And we was doing some tests and stuff, and I was like, you know what? I think this might be. She was like, I don't know. I mean, you might want to try this one. And eventually, when I got around to it, I was like, you know what? She's right. This is the best one. You know what I mean? Like, so we appreciate. We really do appreciate the relationship that we get to have with women. Like, I mean, I won't lie to you. I appreciate it. I feel like, when it comes to, sorry, let me make sure I've got this thing. I've got this thing that makes it. I feel like when it comes to men and women relationships in that regard, it's important to take the great aspects from that friendship and that relationship. And some of the things that I think are really great about when you're in friendship with women is, the conversations that you guys have, the different perspective, the way that they contemplate certain different factors and the way they see certain things. Sometimes the emotional, aspect of the way they see a situation as well. So, it's beautiful when you get to, it's beautiful when you're able to get that friendship with someone who's of the opposite sex, and there's some great qualities that come along with that friendship. I think also that you're absolutely right. Sometimes it can be, for us as men, can be draining. It can be draining staying in a place of emotional continuity, the upkeep of emotional aspect of that relationship. I think that's why sometimes as men, we just want to just get along, go along and get along. We don't want to have to do emotional thoughts and labors. You know what I mean? Like, if it's your birthday, I might buy you a little gift and keep it pushing and keep it moving. I mean, I don't have to get necessarily sentimental and deep and everything else. You know what I mean? Like, so sometimes there's a lot of emotional work that can come into play with opposite sex friendships that can make it techie. You know what I mean? Which is quite different in terms of the playground when it comes to men and men, when it does come to women and men as well. Yeah.
Oh, and speaking of birthdays, not like it's an issue or anything, but just we got to shout out Seaway. Today's her birthday.
Absolutely. Happy birthday, Seaway, baby.
She's not going to be entertaining us on this here men's panel, though. Not on her birthday.
Not on this new night.
Exactly, but it'll catch us somewhere.
She'll feel it in the morning.
Exactly. But yeah, no, I'm with you. And I think, again, I just want to always preface it by saying that, I enjoy the women friends that I have, man. I mean, they can lift you up, pick you up. I mean, especially this year, so many of my friends, especially the women, because they are just naturally more nurturing in that way, have really gone out of their way to just be supportive to me, so I can, I can't, stress it enough that I do appreciate them, but it is work. And I think Mr. Don't Play said it. I said it earlier in our other live. I'm at capacity. I'm at capacity. No more platonic friends. I'm at capacity. Can we have an associate? Sure. But don't. It's going to be very minimal expectations. Don't stress me out, because you're going to be sorely displeased, because I don't have it to give to you. Now,
Yeah.
a new woman can come on the scene. I'm not gonna step in the way of her, but a friendship, no. If you're stuck in, oh no, we could just be friends, be platonic. No. Get somebody else to do it.
Yeah, listen, and I think also as well, I think in my past, like I said, friendships and stuff, I think if we go by the question, do modern women bear, I mean, let's call it as women, do women bear the emotional load in friendship with men? Do you feel like women have bared that load more than men in your experience?
I was having this conversation with my cousin a while ago, and she was just talking about expectations on women and how just in families, how, it's just assumed that a woman will do certain things, and if somebody gets sick, they kind of assume that, okay, if there is a woman, she's going to be the first that the family will look to do something. So I mean, I hear that aspect, but in friendships, I don't know, bro. I don't know. I don't, and again, I don't want it to feel like I'm labored, but the women I'm friends with, they do give, and it's not that they don't, but they also, it's not a one-sided friendship. Like they will ask advice of me. They will, want my perspective. We talk through things, and they'll bring things to the table that they're interested in doing, talking about, or whatever. So I feel like, it's not like equal, but I don't feel like they're overly taxed. You get what I'm saying? And I also think that, sometimes as men also, and again, these are the women that I'm in friendships with. Um, it's not like they're like giving me a pass to just sit back and kick my feet up and they're taking care of me. It's not the case, you know? So it's not like I'm sitting back and my women friends like handle everything, manage everything, and I'm just like coasting. No, like we both work at the friendship, we both talk through things. Sometimes I feel emotionally taxed because, I'm having to regulate my emotions. If they get on my nerves, I have to be cautious about, the conversation and how I manage it, you know? And I think it's very different. You know what I mean? Like if I got an issue with you, coach, then it's just one day I'm gonna pick up the phone and be like, hey coach, don't do this. Or you'll be like, hey Sean, when you do this, blah, 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 and we move on. You don't necessarily have to think, okay, like how am I gonna say this? How am I gonna present it so Sean will understand? I don't want to hurt his feelings. It's just like you're just gonna tell me. And I'm not going to say we don't exercise a level of care with each other. Of course we do. That's mutual respect, but it's a little bit different when you're interacting and handling things with the woman.
Yeah, man. I definitely understand that as well. Question came in. So if you had to choose, would you choose a male or female friendship? Someone said I bet female. I think when I was younger, I would have chosen a female relationship because I wasn't in tune with myself. And so a lot of times, it was easier to talk with women because I could talk about my feelings, and they were very receptive to that. I think as I've got older now, I realize, I'm a part of setting a safe space for other men, as well as obviously, requesting one for myself. So if I want to see a safe space, sometimes I have to lead that. And I'm okay with that now, right? But again, I think it's more to my attachment styles that I don't necessarily get attached to people that closely. But I think in reality, I prefer the male connections, right? And that's because I always feel like I've only got space for one female friend that I can do best friend. The rest are not my friends. When I say the rest are not my friends, in terms of when I look at friendships, I think to myself, who am I dying for? And there's a lot of you I won't die for. Okay? I like a lot of you, I just won't die for you. Okay. So when I say that, as a friend, that's what I mean. I think to myself that it's always techie too, in terms of people liking each other, situations with when it comes to, like I said, the having to deal with certain emotional issues. I just prefer the low maintenance aspect of men. We don't ask for too much from each other, and I appreciate that at points. I can't lie to you as a man, but that's just me. What about yourself, Sean?
I don't. I can't say I prefer one to the other. I mean, when you talk about like my best friend, that's like my, the closest person to me. It's a guy. It's like my brother. So, like I don't know. Do I have close friends that are women? Of course I do. You know, two of them are on this platform. Jay and Seaway. So yeah, we're close. And I can't say I prefer I prefer you know, Jay over you. It's not a thing. It's like, it's just two different friendships. And I think when you have a genuine connection with a guy, it's very different than having that connection with a woman, you know, on the
Can you have
friendship
the same
level.
connection?
No, I don't think so. Because it's two, they bring two different perspectives, right? You know, whereas, you know, a woman can empathize with me, but a guy is going to, they don't need to necessarily for core things, right? Because there's certain things that just go without saying, because certain things are just, not every man thinks exactly the same. I don't want to drive that narrative, but there's certain things that we just get, you know? There's certain things that we just kind of understand. It's just a core level thing that sometimes we don't even have to explain it. So, you know, I just think, but are there certain things that I would say, oh, this particular thing, oh, I would want to talk to, you know, one of my friends that's a woman about first before I talk to one of my guys? Yes. But I think overall, they're just two very different things. And I think there's definitely value. Like for anybody, like if there's a woman and all she has is men friends, you know, that's something that you should look at. And if there's a man and all he has is friends that are women, that's something that you should look at, because your energy, we need energy balances. You get what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to get into the all masculine, feminine, but we do need energy balances. And I'm not saying like, if you have 3 women friends and only 1 guy friend, it's the end of the world. No, it's not. But you should have, like, there are some women and some guys that's all they have is the opposite sex friendships. And I think you just need that balance. And you need to kind of, it just it feels good when you're just hanging out with your guys. You know what I'm saying? There's no better feeling like when you're just hanging out with your guys and you're just chilling. You know, and I don't have that same feeling when I'm with my friends that are women. I enjoy them immensely. We have a good time, but it's not that same camaraderie, that same bond that I have when I'm just hanging out with the fellas.
You know what's interesting? I think I always felt safer with women when I was younger. When I say safer, what I should say is I always felt more comfortable. I could be amongst them, around them, and chill and vibe. You know what I mean? You know, and obviously I chill with the men when it comes to when I'm playing sports or whatever, right? Because I like talking about conversations. And it's interesting because obviously a lot of men don't necessarily talk about relationships like in that same format, at least when I was younger anyway. But I think, and I remember a situation where as a man, you get to a place where you realize men and women are inherently different. Now, when I was younger, I was thinking, you know, there isn't much difference between men and women in terms of the way we think, because I thought I had more of a, quote unquote, I thought along the same lines as women when it comes to dealing with emotions and stuff like that, right? But as I became more aware of myself and more coming into my own space as a man, I realized that, you know, even with my best friend, I was even talking about, we was having a conversation about this as well, is that we started having different values and different ideas because of the way that we started now becoming more, I'll quote unquote say more healed, because we were in, I would say, opposite sex energies. I was more in the feminine, she was more in the masculine, just due to what emotional wounds we've collected over the years. As we started doing the work to reverse that kind of effect, I started to realize, right, I actually really do value the male energy around me. You know what I mean? I really do value being around other men. I don't have to censor myself. I don't have to, think about what I'm going to say. You know, I can say some stupid stuff, you know, and we keep it moving because we're just boys. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's certain jokes that we make as men. We can't make the same jokes when you're around women as well. And so just being able to be free and be your natural self was really important to me as well. So I think I think it really just is a process of, you know, what energy you're gravitating towards. But I would say personally that as I've grown up more now, I really do value the male companionship in terms of friendship, and be like, yeah, like, it's good to be amongst other men, even if they disagree. It's good to be amongst them. They're challenging me. They are pushing me. They're, making me think, those things in a particular way. Not saying women don't do that, but as men, we are competitive in that particular aspect too. So, just little things, little jokes, also they're all little things that make up friendships as well. So yeah, definitely for me, focusing on that male to male interaction is important.
Yeah, and then I'm not gonna hold you. Like, then the friendship can get tricky too, because if you guys, for the friends that I have that are women, you know, if there's attraction there, and now we vibing and bonding, it just, I'm not gonna lie, it just makes things sticky. It doesn't make it easy. I mean, and you try to, obviously we're mature, right? We're not gonna say like, oh, just because a woman is attractive, that means you're gonna, take advantage of the opportunity, of course, but you know, time and opportunity. And if they're single, it just makes it more sense. But then you're like, hey, listen, if this doesn't work out, then it does. It would definitely ruin the friendship.
I'll definitely hear that. Mr. Don't Play said, I ain't feel safe with my women homies emotionally. I've seen how they weaponize information against their boyfriends and even fellow girlies. Men, homies, we can talk about anything. Ooh, that's a bit of a sticky one there, Mr. Play. That's a sticky one, and funny enough, maybe not necessarily weaponize whatever I've said. I've been in situations where with women where you're like, women are very interesting. That's what I'm gonna say. Women are very interesting, and I'm a person that when someone says something to me, I keep it to myself. If I tell you, I expect you to keep it to yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, or at least I expect you to keep it to trust the people around you. I find that I've found that in certain situations. This is not all. So again, ladies, don't jump down my throat. That when vengeance is not the Lord's, when there's an opportunity to quick bang another woman, maybe that she said something, you've got something over her, or whatever. It doesn't have to even be said against you. It could be said to someone else. Like, say if I've said something about another particular girl and I've told my friend and said, hey, look, this situation between me and her, blah, blah, blah. If the girl tries it and my friend sees fit, information can slip. Just in the heat of a moment, information can slip. I've seen certain situations where we didn't need to say anything, and because of the heat of the moment, information slipped that caused both of us to have trouble. And I realized, oh my God. And I'm not going to tell them anything anymore. Not because they're bad, but because heats of the moment. Sometimes I've seen with women, and it could be maybe women have experienced the same thing with men. But sometimes they'll be letting things slip when they get angry or when they get frustrated or when they get hurt. That shouldn't be slipping and be slipping, and it's like, oh my God, you ain't need to say that, man. Like, you ain't need to let that slip. Like, that information needs to come out, Again, that's not me dogging friendships with men and women again. It's just me just kind of documenting, a situation that's happened. You know what I mean? So just a little thought process there. What are you saying, Sean?
Yeah, again, I will say, like, I have probably a handful of very close friends that are women. And those relationships, I'm trying to think. They all had a rock and roll in them somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, we all had a moment in those friendships. And I mean, some of them lasted and some of them didn't, of all in general. So I think similar to you, I probably have always had women friends. I can't say there was a point where I only had women friends, but I've always had women friends. I've always had friends that were women. even as a little boy. I did have them, but my closest friends were still always guys. You know, even my friends in the neighborhood, friends when I went to school, my closer friends were guys, and then I would still have friends that were girls too. And I think that's just, but I've always, similar to you, felt comfortable, being friends with women. I never felt like it was a problem, so and I think my dad was the same way. So I think as a kid growing up, I saw that too. He always had, he had his male friends, and then he had women friends too that he was really platonic with. And my dad was a talker too. And, a guy that talks is not as, as verbal, is, it's more popular now, but back in his time, especially, wasn't as super popular. So I think that's why he got along well with the ladies, and wound up having some as friends. So, but it's work, bro. I'm not even gonna sit up here and pretend like it's not work. It is work. And I think women may feel like they do the burden of the work, but because maybe men were not as expressive in telling them all the time, like it's a lot of work, because that's not necessarily, most guys, aren't always going to tell you, hey, listen, it does stress me a little bit to think about that, because we don't want anybody to feel bad, that we don't want, we wouldn't want a woman that we care about, that's a friend, to feel like she's a burden, because it's not really that, but it is taxing. And I think just because we don't verbalize it, maybe the perception for them is like, yeah, we're doing all the work, but you don't know what behind the scenes for us, because a lot, and I think this is where I'll kind of finish my point, is that for men, a lot of the work is internal. Like, so before it becomes words, and I think women don't realize this, is like our brain is always thinking behind the scenes. Most men are measured, so we're just thinking, and our wheels are turning. And we like that ability to not have to do that. You get what I'm saying? Like, as a guy, when we come on, we've worked a long day. That's why that running joke, a man just wants to sit there on his feet, with his feet on the couch and lay up and watch TV or do whatever he does to relax. And it's not taking anything away from women. We know you want to relax too. We're not saying that. But like, as a man, because so much of what we do is like in here, and we're thinking, and what should we do next, and what this is going to mean, and how this is going to impact X, we just want that release. While when we get with our friends, we want it to be a place where we don't have to think. When we're in friendships with women, we have to think. We definitely have to think. If I talk to you and maybe I raise my voice a little bit, you're not going to get all worked up with me for the most part, unless I'm screaming and yelling at you. But if I'm just raising my voice because we're talking, or we happen to be disagreeing, you're not going to get upset. But if I'm talking to a woman, and I'm standing over top of her, or I'm raising my voice, me and my best friend, we guaranteed, every time we get together, like if I don't see him for a couple of months, we're going to debate about something. But it's like, it's over, we're going to debate about something we're going to debate about, something we're going to have some type of philosophical disagreement about. We're going to talk about a topic, we're going to see it differently, and we're just going to hash it out. And then at the end of it, that's it. We move on. You can't do that with your women friends in that capacity. You'll be stressing yourself out.
Yeah, listen, it's a tough one on that one still. I think you just need to be aware in it, like I said. And again, this is probably our experience and anything. This is, just got to be aware when you tell certain situations, and what's happening, And that's not to say I don't receive a lot of information back my way from other sources, but that lets me know that if that information is getting to me, my shit's getting someone else too. So, you know what I mean? So you just got to weigh it up. Like, fantastic is coming to me, I don't mind. I'm going to keep it a buck, keep it coming my way. But it means that if I'm telling you mine, I need to be ready to be aware. Some people know. They don't need to tell me, but they know. You know what I mean? And I understand that, So yeah, that definitely is a real situation when it comes to men and women kind of friendships in that respect. So yeah, I don't see. I think for me in the I think for me in even when it comes to myself and female friendship, my best friend, we've had to do a lot of work, especially the last year. I think we've done work without even realizing we're doing work the last year, right? Because obviously she's more anxious, I'm more dismissive. But I think I spoke about this before, where it's like we see the world differently, right? For instance, she wants to prepare, plan, and prep and everything for you, right? She likes to do that kind of stuff. She likes to make sure you're gonna have a good time by preparing, planning, and stuff, and that kind of stuff. I felt like it's restrictive. I felt like it's too much. I felt like I just want to be able to just do whatever I want to do. You know what I mean? And sometimes I think one of the benefits of having female friendships though is the way that they oftentimes I feel like women tend to think ahead. I do love that aspect about women. Oftentimes they like to think ahead, they like to plan, prepare. They try to see all the different options on the table and try to prepare. And that's something I do appreciate about having female friends. I love the fact that a lot of times sometimes you don't even need it, but sometimes, you having female friends, they will check up on you emotionally. Like, hey, are you good? Want to make sure you're actually good. Make sure you're okay. You know what I mean? And so those aspects of having female friendships are actually really, really, really powerful for me in that respect. I guess going back to that question, do women bear the emotional load in friendships? Maybe I'm going to be a bit biased and say because maybe I need to ask a friend and see how they view it from their perspective. You know what I mean? To get an accurate depiction. I would say that I'm a person that you need me when you need me. You know what I'm saying? So when you need me, there's a lot of emotional labor that goes into when you need me. I think there may be a lot of friendships where men are not pulling their weight emotionally in that regard, but I think I'm a bit biased. You know what I mean? Because I'm seeing it from my perspective in that regard, yeah. It's harder to see. I think it's harder to see what your boys' friendships are. Oh, is it? Okay, I don't know, my mic's going on. My mic's been playing up all day for some reason. I'll put it here. I think it's a little bit difficult in terms of being able to determine how good a friendship is with men and women, someone else's friendship, because we don't actually often get insight into that. If I'm honest with you, I don't know how my boys have friendships with women in terms of, because I don't really discuss that, you know what I mean? And I don't really have many conversations with my other boys talking about how their friendships are with other women. Now, they talk about their girlfriend, that's different. But in terms of their friendship with other women, I don't really get an insight into that. So it's a bit more harder to really give that estimation because we don't discuss that oftentimes from my perspective. I don't know if that's the same for you, Sean, but of other men, I don't think I've ever discussed much in terms of their female friendships in depth or any particular aspect. It may be different, so.
Like it's sometimes we've said similar things, like the work aspect or like the balance of trying to maintain the line of making sure it's a friendship, a friendship doesn't cross any lines or boundaries. I think, me and my guy friends have had that conversation. Also, navigating your women friends with when you have a girl, right? So now, some of your friendships, you might be single now, and then what happens when you have a girl, and you have to introduce, her. And I've navigated that, and I've had instances where it went well, and then instances where it really did. There were two distinct instances where it really just didn't go well at all. It was like visibly bad. It was one relationship, not with my ex-wife, before her, well before her. And my current friend still tells me about this all the time, but it was a girlfriend I had at the time. She was throwing me like a surprise birthday party, and she knew all of my friends and stuff, but for whatever reason, she didn't invite this particular, friend of mine. Now, mind you, this girl and I we had been friends. Like, there was no way. She knew her. She knew people that knew her. She invited my other friend that knew her, you know, so it wasn't like, oh, it was an oversight. She actually met her several times. It was an intentional, like, oh, she intentionally left her off because she just didn't like her. And I didn't recognize it until that point when my friend brought it to me. It was like, how can she not invite us? How could she not invite me? She's like, she just doesn't like me. Now, mind you, it's so wild, but mind you, at this time, that friend was married. She had just gotten married recently. But she said, I don't even know if it was that she thought I don't even know if she thought something, but she just, for whatever reason, she just didn't like her. And she just did not invite her. And my friend, and this is years have passed since this has happened. And she's like, yeah, I remember your ex. She didn't invite me to that birthday party. And then I got heat for it too. I'm like, how am I catching heat? It's a surprise party for me, but I'm getting looked at sideways. I was like, I have nothing to do with this.
You know, I think that's one of the interesting things that you spoke about, how women can become very territorial on either side, girlfriends or your friend, when you get into a relationship. It's really interesting because I think for us as men, that doesn't happen as often, right? Like if Sean, you get into a relationship, even if I don't like your girlfriend, that doesn't become an issue. You know what I'm saying to you? I'm like, yeah, bro, I don't like his girl, but it's not now become an issue. But when it seems to be, and again, it might be my perception as a man, when it comes to, you getting into a relationship, either your girl or the friend sometimes can get into a situation where they don't like each other and you're not sure why. It's like they sometimes they can't even explain the reason why they have this frustration. I just don't like her. I don't like the way she carries herself. I don't like the way she moves. What's going on? Like, what's actually really happening here? You know what I mean? Like, or the girl will be like, your girl might say, I don't like your friend, like she's too close. And it's like, and literally all it is actually really platonic. Like, even like in my friendship with my best friend, we've never kissed, never held hands, never sat in the same bed, never looked at each other. Like honestly, it's a straight platonic thing. You understand what I'm saying to you? But even so, I've had one ex-girlfriend be like, I feel like it's too close. It's like, what? I'm like, I don't like that close stuff. So what are you seeing? You know what I mean? And so that's why I'm like, sometimes I'm like, I feel like sometimes the women sometimes have this, they have a distrust of other women, which is really interesting because when you tell them about the fact that that man is a thing, you know what I mean? So that's me being a bit facetious, but yeah, that's something that I've experienced, which is really interesting as well to see in those friendships.
Yeah, they're going to tell you about their intuition when it's convenient for them. Oh no, I don't trust her. Oh, there was one where she was kind of right. She was kind of right.
That's right, you tell the truth.
It's fun. They both were right. My girl and my friend, they both were right about each other. Funny enough, because that was very plain to see that they just didn't like. It was just instant. They just didn't like each other. I think my friend tried, but it was too late. My girl at the time had already peeped that she didn't like her, and then it just was like it went downhill. But I wound up, putting some space with the friendship. I wound up putting some space with the friendship, for the greater good of my relationship. But there were things that the friend had told me that she was right about. But she was also, when somebody is kind of working their own side angle too, because I think friendships, I think in any friendship, you have this feeling. Like sometimes we feel like it's not ownership, right? But especially if it's a good friendship, you like to spend time with that person. And as much as, let's say, Coach, you're single now and you're single mingle stage, I'm single now. And then one of us gets in a substantial relationship, it's going to impact it. I'm going to feel it. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not going to get upset. I'm not going to get angry. You know, I'm not going to be like, oh, Kojo don't care about me. But guys even say this too, you know, like, oh, you get a girl and you don't even hang out with us anymore. So I think generically, male and female, we have that feeling when something shifts in our friendships, especially if it's somebody we're really close to. We feel a way if something changes. Now, I think it gets amplified with men and women. I think that feeling just gets slightly amplified and slightly tweaked when it's a man and a woman. Again, and everybody's putting some great things. And I think these are all the things for those that may have, you know, be just joining us in this part of the conversation. You know, Coach and I said, yeah, there's no way I would never, there's none of the women friends that I have now. I'm trying to be conscious of the women versus female, because, you know, that word can, you know, trying to be better, elevate my vocabulary. So, you know, all the friends that I have that are women, I value and wouldn't trade for the world, like, at all. So I really think that they are valuable. They, you know, share different perspectives from me. I mean, even up until this point, like, between the women that I've come to know on this channel, the friends that I've gotten through here, and just others, you know, just thinking about things that have come up, like the Jonathan Majors case. I probably would have looked at that the same way that I look at it now than I looked at it in the past. You know, maybe 2-3 years ago, I would have immediately jumped on the bandwagon and been like, yeah, they're setting old boy up. He ain't do nothing. You know, whereas now I'm looking deeper at it, you know, and I realized that speech is delusions of grandeur. You know, like, I had to just look that up and learn that, like, when somebody talks like that, that is abusive and manipulative behavior. You know, or even exercising more empathy with what's the dude, Christian Keys, right? You know, he's catching some flack, and even there's brothers that are supporting him, but the underlying is like they're treating him just like they treat the women and saying, well, why did you wait so long? You know, but now I'm like, you know, the brother's been through some things, and I'm just digging deeper, and, like, you know, it's not about picking a side, but it's just about expanding your view, thinking about things differently. And I think those have come from my you know, my friendships with women. And somebody asked why women versus female. Again, something I've learned from women. Females are how it's like women are, it's an animal, right? So the preferential language is to describe women as women and not as females, because that is in many ways, it's language is so important, but it is a way that women have been dehumanized through the years. So something I've learned, not all women prescribe to it, but a lot of women do appreciate when you do not refer to them as females. They, you know, universally would appreciate being referred to as women. So I just try to make an attempt to do that. Again, something I've learned because I never thought about it. It's in our language, but there's certain things that you just learn along the way. Like, hey, listen, this is because of that. And that is because of this. And this is the way that in a lot of instances, it has caused oppression or allowed for women to not be treated fairly. So again, just things that I've learned along the way that I think are valuable.
It's called growth. I love that. Yeah, and I think that's when we're evolving and being more conscientious of the space we take up in the world around us, you know, and, you know, being aware of how we show up in the world. And that actually does help when you actually have genuine friendships with women. This actually does take place. I think one of the things that we actually could actually one of the things that we can actually really be blessed with is to have female friends, real good female friends, because I think some of the things that I've really began to learn over the past few years about even equality, injustice, looking at things from a different perspective, you know, I think, you know, it's so powerful because, you know, like you were saying, I learned a lot about sexual violence through a female friend, and I learned to look at situations so much more differently. I started to even look at some of my own situations. You know, I'll tell you a story, maybe not this time now, maybe in 2025, about some things, okay? All right? I started seeing differently. I started seeing certain imbalances. I won't go too deep into the situation, but I had a situation where a woman put me in a very compromising position. And it was so compromising, I was like, I got vexed after. I was so angry after. And I was like, yo, this is what they be talking about. Now, I'm much stronger than this woman, but I was vulnerable at this moment. You know what I mean? In this moment, I was vulnerable. And so those conversations now make you start to to change your perspective on how you see situations in life. Spending time on here, on YouTube, with the audience, with yourself, and you know, the ladies as well, you know, having pushback and having conversations, see things differently, having Jay, Seaway, seeing things from a different perspective, just means that you get to chip away at some of the very solo focused viewpoint that you have from a male perspective, and that allows you to also understand that we don't move through the world alone. We move with other people, and so there are different perspectives that have to be taken into account, and that's one of the beautiful things that you learn being in a relationship, a friendship with women. Some of those finer details that you may not pay attention to, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think, you know, some of the positive things, like even in college, I had one friend, and I think I put this in the chat the other day. I forgot what the conversation was that you were having on one of your lives. Maybe it was this topic or another, but anyway, I was like super preppy in college. Like high school and college, I was very preppy, like very preppy. So I had this one friend, and I mean, always, you know, I dress nice, but I was just like very preppy, and not like just I would wear navy blue, you know, navy blue, khaki, brown, blah blah blah. And I had this one friend, you know, she was cute. I met her in college. We kind of just sparked conversation. I mean, yeah, the friendship started because, yeah, I thought she was attractive, but I wasn't necessarily trying to like holler at her. I was just like, oh, we have the same class in college, and she was cute, and I saw her every day, and eventually I was like, oh, what's your name? And blah, blah, blah. We just became friends. Anyway, fast forward, she wound up having a boyfriend, age-old story, right? So we're just talking one day, and she was like, oh, you should wear this color, and you should wear that color. You know, and I just listened to her because she was like, yeah, you should wear more red and this and that. No, I wasn't square, Coco, you know, but you know, I wore Gap, I wore J. Crew, I wore Banana Republic, you know, and I was preppy. I was like, you know, I wasn't really wearing super baggy clothes. So nevertheless, she just gave me some colors to wear, and she was like, oh, and get these Tims, you know, da 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 da. So we just, you know, but listen, I wore those colors. I started taking a couple of the suggestions that she had made, and I was like, oh, I saw the difference. You know, the difference in, you know, how I felt, the difference in the attention that I got. And I always remember that. And, you know, so yes, I know I'm still preppy today. I know I'm still preppy today. Thank you, Renee. I was preppy. And probably much more conservative looking than you know, she expanded my horizon a little bit to include other things that I didn't think about. But yeah, so I think like those are the things. Or if there was a girl that I liked, I would just tell her, and she'd be like, oh, no, you don't do that. You're doing too much. You know, now your guys can tell you that too. But sometimes your guys are going to tell you stuff that's going to probably push you too far. You know, you get, you know, one of your good girlfriends, they're going to be like, no. Let me tell you exactly. But they'd be like, nah, move on. She don't like you. I'm telling you, we play this game all the time. She don't like you. And I appreciate that. So.
Yeah, to be honest, I remember the situation when I had a past ex as well. And I remember, I suppose two friends who were female, women. And they literally was like, yo, they was like, we hear you, but your ex don't want you like that. Get it moving. I'm like, no, but the Lord done told me. They said, no, listen to me, coach. I love the fact you have faith. I'm a woman, I'm telling you, this is not how we move. You know what I mean? And they were right at the same time. I was right too, but it's just, they were right. In a natural sense, they were actually right. You know, the way that she moved was not someone who was, who cared about you and loved you, right? And these girls told me straight out, you know, hey, look, we don't move like that. That ain't what it is. Like, you need to get it moving, you know? And so, you know, just like how men know men, women know women. And, you know, that's why the benefit of having real good female women friendships is so important, because they understand the woman's mind. And why would I try to ask men how women move just because he dates women or whatever? Women know women. You know what I mean? And so it's important. I think even in relationships it's important, because sometimes the way that a woman will view something will not be necessarily how we view something. So sometimes getting even that third party, that's a woman saying, hey, this is how we think. This is what's probably going through her head. Give her some grace. Go and have a conversation. Now you're like, oh my God, I didn't realize that, because I'm thinking from my male perspective, this wouldn't happen. This is, you know, so those things are very important in that aspect as well. Someone asked a question, not this one, sorry, that's not the wrong question, I apologize, that's not the question. The question was, it was about, there we go. Has being on a platform with a majority female audience changed any of your perspectives about women? Has it, Sean?
A good one and a bad one. Well, good, I kind of shared earlier, you know, just what I talked about, the whole female versus woman dialogue. I also learned, and we talked about this on when we had our panel appreciation day, I learned how to listen better, to not be so quick to argue. I learned to hear women out more, and give them a chance to you know, because a lot of times, like, how my mind worked, and I think this is generally a male way of thinking, like, you got about 15 seconds once we're in like a debate, you know, or like a different exchange of ideas, and if you're saying some key words that are just showing me you're not listening, or you're just disagreeing and you're not catching what's being said, I'm shutting down, and then it's just going to be you're wrong, and I'm going to just go into defense mode, right? But I've learned to just, you know, give women a chance, give them a time to express what they're saying, you know, before I just jump in and dive in, because women like to give examples. They like to paint a picture a little bit more than we are prone to do. So I've learned to, you know, I'm not perfect at it, but I've learned to definitely do that a little bit better. And that's something I learned on this channel.
Listen, I hear you. I mean, I think I've grown immensely being on this channel. I think from a leadership perspective, I've learned a lot more. I think from being a channel owner, having a predominantly woman audience has really helped me to see how best to, how a better practice in terms of how to go about situations, how to lead, how to do it without also making it a power play. As well. So I feel like I've really learned a lot, and I've you know, the ladies have contributed quite a bit in terms of my growth going forward. You know what I mean? In terms of just increasing my patience, increasing my, you know, my tolerance, my tone. How do I say things? How do I handle things with women? It's actually done me good. It's almost been dating without dating. It's actually been really helpful in terms of how I will go into a next relationship, because I've learned how to handle several different scenarios within this situation being on this platform. You know, what do you do when you're under pressure? What do you do when people disagree with you? What happens when we're at an impasse? You know, what happens when, you know, you're being peppered, or what happens when you're wrong? You know, do you just say 10 toes down and become, you know what I mean? Like, all those things have happened being on this channel for the last few years. And it's been really important. Learning that obviously every move I make also is being watched at that point. So how do I lead those people as well in the right particular way as well? So I think it's been very, 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 very helpful being on this platform, and having predominantly women audience. And I feel like any man who comes into this space will learn greatly from being in this space, because we've cultivated a space where both men and women can grow, can have conversation, can have interchange. If you're, and, you know, I think, you know, just even, it will shape your leadership skills too here, you know, because once you're on a platform, or at least when you're on a panel at least as well, you know that you have a lot of power saying what you're saying, but you're learning to be responsible of it. That how do I want to get my message across? What message do I want to get across? What impact do I want to make? Do I want to bring healing, or do I want to bring carnage? You know what I mean? Like when you, you know, when you really spend time here, and you start realizing it's almost like being in church. You're learning to be shaped in this place. You know, in church, you get time to shape yourself, you know, before you go to the outer world. You get to spend time and interact with different people. So just being in amongst other women, it's almost a really great playground, because you're not in close contact, but you're in close contact. You know what I mean? So you get to avoid some of the madness that you usually would have with close contact with men and women. But, you know, it's really a great opportunity to have a lot of those discussions that maybe might not necessarily happen if you're in physical form, because of the fact that, like, when you spend time with women and men, we all do super stuff. It just gets very techy really quickly. So I don't know if you can say the same about that, Sean, if you feel.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think, you know, there's just some really good traits that help you to better understand. Because I think in relationships, we struggle with being understood and not seen. And I think when we feel misunderstood, or if we feel not seen, we start to draw our own conclusions. And then we fill in those gaps a lot of times with whatever void we already come to the relationship with, or whatever trauma we come to the relationship with, we fill it with that. So if we've feel abandoned, then when the person doesn't, you know, do what we expect them to do, then, you know, it turns into that. Or if we've had anger in our background, whatever that is, whenever there's a misunderstanding or an issue, those things that are still unhealed in us fill that void. And I think a lot of times, if we can just talk things through, and I think you did a great example of this earlier today in the conversation with the young lady, I think her name was Flora, right? It was just allowing her to speak, right? She was firing off shots in the chat, you know, just like boom, boom, boom. We were Swiss cheese, some of us that were catching, you know, the shots she was throwing. But then when you kind of, you know, you brought her up, you invited her up, you know, and a lot of people in the chat also encouraged her to come up as well. She came up, and, you know, it's not to say her opinion changed, but we got to a better place where the hostility was removed. And I think that's what happens. We just need to spend a little bit more time listening to each other. We need to spend a little bit more time explaining, even the conversation you have with Cheeky. And I think in that conversation, it's like when we operate, and I had said this in the chat, but the chat was flying. It was such a great conversation. But if you operate with bad faith in an interaction with somebody, then you will always assume the worst. So versus what you were encouraging him to do is give her the benefit of the doubt, although she may have said something hurtful. Yes, you gave a person a disclaimer, but people are not robots. You don't just type a command in and then every time the brain is going to compute, Kojo doesn't like when I do this, I'm going to do that, and I'm never going to do it. And if I do it, then it means I'm a bad person and I'm intentionally just trying to destroy him. No, it doesn't mean that. Do sometimes I know something that's sensitive to you and I'm going to say it? Yes, but that doesn't necessarily make me a bad person. And I think, you know, but when you operate in a place of like very rigid like that, which I used to be too, like, I told you this, then if you did it, then you shouldn't. No, sometimes you have to tell somebody, you have to let them know, hey, listen, I don't like that. And I'm going to separate because what you said to me is hurtful. You know, you have to put words to your feelings. And I think men were just getting more vocal, right? But now it's being not just vocal, but effective communicators, right? Because you can be verbal. And I think this is the other thing, and I'm going to land my plane because I don't want to say too many different things. But a lot of times we'll hear women say, oh, we're better communicators. No, you're more vocal. Women are typically more vocal and verbal than men. Does not mean you're better communicators, because communication is a two-way street. If you're talking and I'm not receiving, you're not an effective communicator. And I think that is also a tactic that men need to be better at, is how do we effectively communicate in our relationships? And to close the loop, having women as friends and being on this platform has helped me to do that, because I'm operating with good faith and understanding first, and then, handling any discord that may take place. But if I'm always assuming the worst, then it blocks the communication, and it blocks us being able to talk and have dialogue.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant summary as well, Sean. Because I think one thing that, the benefit of being in this space is the ability to talk to women consistently and see the reaction of women. I think that's what makes this space so unique. And I'm not just talking about my space, but I'm talking about when the space, having women and men who operate in a space where they can actually have conversations. Because, like we said, we had a conversation with Cheeky, but even going further beyond Cheeky, go into other places where men predominantly take up that space, and you watch how women oftentimes assimilate in those spaces. It's quite interesting to watch, right? So like if you go to Manosphere, or even just some of the male-dominated spaces on YouTube, and you watch how women are, it's quite interesting how they operate. It's almost like a woman entering into a barbershop. It's like nothing's going to change, like, in that aspect, which is quite intriguing. I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm just saying it's quite intriguing to watch. I think in this space here, and one of the things that I always wanted to elevate was, beyond a man or woman, the highest thing that we can have here is intellect. And if you've got intellect, it doesn't matter whether you're a man or woman, you have intellect. You know what I'm saying to you? So if you can, I know you saw what I saw straight away. So I know you saw what I saw straight away. But
we must have talked her up. I talked you up, Flora. I was just talking about you and how glad we were to have you have the conversation earlier.
Literally, we're literally saying talk about you. Literally was talking about you. But yeah, this space, I want it to be, I've always wanted it to be about, intellect being the highest thing, being the highest form of thing that we respect here. Therefore, it doesn't matter whether you're a man or woman. But I think what's really powerful about it is that when you operate in a space where there's no attacks, insults, you're not trying to bash people, and you allow both men and women to communicate, you actually can see a lot more that happens, right? So like you were saying, like there's been opportunities for us to have conversations and watch how women take what we say. And we've gone, okay, that's not, that hasn't worked, unfortunately, or it's not gone down the way we wanted to go down, and it's been pushed back, or, it's been a triggering moment for either the men or the women. I think it really gives you a better opportunity to be able to analyze those things, rather than being a high conflict situation where you almost have to take information in really, really quickly. So when things go wrong, you just say, well, someone shouldn't say this. Whereas I think in this space, it allows you to be able to go, okay, cool. There's a way that when we talk as men, sometimes women are not going to take that. There's a way that when women talk, men are not going to take it. And I think you said it's like I think you said about a year ago, I think, sometimes the message is just wrong. It's not a message, it's a messenger, right? Sometimes women need to hear from women and men need to hear from men. And just, unfortunately, what it is, but that's just the reality. And so it's all those little intricate lessons that get learned, in dialogue and in communication. And this is a great space to kind of learn some of those intricacies. I still think back to that accountability live with the women and them saying, for them, they have to tell us their story first. Now, I would have never known that. I would have only seen it as, and I think this is why I was trying to say to Cheeky, that when you have limited information, it will seem like what you're doing is correct. But like, for instance, when we did the accountability live, I now have a greater empathy and greater space for women to understand my brain and your brain don't work the same. What I'm expecting from you is to straight away go, sorry, move forward. But as they described, for a lot of women, not all, that how they were seeing it as is, they need to tell you the story and tell you what was going on, and then they can say, okay, blah, blah, blah. And that's huge. that can save somebody's relationship. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think, and again, these are all great things, right? That we've learned and are learning along the way. And it just, it, because obviously when I came to this channel, I was a little more heavy-handed. Reasonable, but heavy-handed. I was a little bit more heavy-handed in my ways, and sometimes that still creeps out. But I think one of the things that I've learned of spending time in those other spaces, and they're valuable. Some of the channels I still do watch, some I don't. But I think sometimes I even watch it now, and I'm like, bro, I watch some of the other creators, and I'm like, why y'all so mad? Like, stop being so mad. Like, it's okay. Because we love women. Do they frustrate us sometimes? Of course. But it's all right. Let's just give them the benefit of the doubt, and let's try to work together to have to have much better dialogue. What is Flora talking about?
The way Flora's going to learn. She's going to learn. She's in the space. So we're going to give her grace.
Flora, you need to spend some more time with me. I think we've just become acquainted, but I'm just saying heavy-handed in my approach. It didn't really matter. Look, Kojo will tell you, if a guy came on and said something, it wasn't like I was just targeting women. No, it was like, if you didn't say something that I agreed with and I felt like your points weren't valid, you're just going to hear, I wasn't disrespectful, but, I was just very heavy-handed and stern with my approach. And it's one thing I, had to learn is just to exercise a little bit more grace, especially if you want to have good relationships with people. You can't just come punching at people.
Yeah, no, and I think, but that's a benefit again, that's the benefit of, again, this space, because it allows you to really observe. Anybody who's been here for at least 2-3 years can observe the differences, right? Because before Sean, you came, before Sean came, it was myself and ladies. And I had one or two guys, but they weren't as vocal, like you said. Literally, they were literally not as vocal. And I said to you, I said having Sean in the space has been really beneficial and actually really important for the cultivation of the space. You actually need more men in the space in order for the space to cultivate and be actually well-rounded. And I was saying that having him on the panels is really important, that even if it may be a little bit harsh, sometimes the truth needs to be said, and it was good because he was yang and I was yang, you know what I mean? I could soften it, but, sometimes someone needs to say a little bit, bop on your head, you know what I mean? Bop. Sometimes someone needs to do a little bop. Just to wake you up a little bit, you know what I mean? Right? And, because what happened is I had created a very good space for women. It's not very helpful for men. So it was a good space for women because they had a safe space. They could always come in here. They knew we were going to get content that was going to be more closer to curated for women to be able to feel safe in. But we also needed to create a space where there was more men coming through. So they need to see more face. They need to see more men on the panel. They need to see more vocal men. But we needed to have men who were going to be intellectual about it as well. So when Sean came in, that was what he was bringing. It was a little bit, yes, he said he was a little bit heavy-handed, but it was at the point needed the way he came in. And at first, women were not with it, and it didn't take long before they were with it. Do you know what I mean? It didn't take long before the women were with it. And because once they started to see that he's not trying to hurt them, this wasn't a Kevin Samuels kind of guy who's trying to, break women down, the women began to trust him and actually became one of the favorites, right? So again, it's a lesson again once more, because once people begin to have conversation and actually begin to learn each other and begin to have conversations about understanding one another, you begin to smooth each other out a little bit. So, you know, that's also that's also important to the conversation. Flora is a whole troublemaker. She'll fit right in. Yes, Sean, go for it.
I love Flora. She's just, you know, causing just a little bit of trouble and having fun at the same time. So we love it. Yeah, I think, you know, I think that's it, right? It's like you learning a balance. It's just the same way in a new relationship, right? You know, you take input, you take the information from the person, and you know. So I think those are some of the great things, and I think, you know, now you know, the ladies and I, we could have great banter in the chat, right? They'll tease me, and we'll have good comments and dialogue, and then we have other fellas like, you know, I've noticed Mr. Don't Play has been coming around a lot lately. We love that. We encourage that, right? We got Trey, you know, we have JR that comes in, you know, so we love that you know, that fellas, that camaraderie. And even we had our men's panel, right? Hey. Some will, some won't. So what? That's it. You know, like, I don't know what to tell you, but I think that is the beauty of it. And we, as much as that was very much man focused, we still needed the ladies in there to hear some of the things we were saying, and to add inputs along the way. But I think that was more for us as a way to get out certain things, to talk through certain things that we were feeling. And, you know, it will continue to evolve. But I think the ladies here, they've given us grace. You know, they've accepted apologies when apologies were needed. You know, they can get a little better at giving out some of those apologies, but you know, that's 2024.
Growth.
Yeah.
We'll grow in that space. Yeah, no, and you know, yeah, no, I think you know, the reality of the situation is, you know, that's part of what we're saying about growing and developing and being better. You know, and that also contributes towards as well, like what you're saying there. You know, sometimes we feel like sometimes the ladies may not necessarily apologize, but that's also part of our growth journey as well. You know, as you know, those who are on the panel, those who are leading, it's also part of that journey. And you know, I think even just, I think for me personally, why it's really been really great is that for instance, my frustrations, you know, have been soothed out a lot, right? Some of my own, I want to call it sexism. I will even maybe some misogyny might be in there, lodged in there. You know what I mean? That has been smoothed out by having conversations with women. And sometimes misogyny is not necessarily like, you know, you go out and start cussing women. Sometimes it's my lack of patience for them. You know what I mean? And just that can even be part of that, right? And I feel like spending time with women in this space has been really powerful. Like, you know, sometimes you know, like for instance, today Flora came up on the thing. If that was maybe 2-3 years ago, you should have got a royal bollocking. You know what I mean? Like, I would have given Flora the work, okay, with her sweet voice that she came up there with, you know. And it would have been because I felt frustrated, or I felt annoyed, or I felt like she's testing me. You know what I mean? My own insecurities playing into the situation. So being in this space has really helped because it also it makes you well-rounded. You know what I mean? And you know, it means that again, you start looking at it in a different format, different light. So now when I'm seeing women come up, and let's say, for instance, now we know, Sean, like if someone is piping away in a chat, we now know, hold on, you know what? We're not going to give all that energy to you because we know that there's probably something going on. Come up, let's have a conversation, let's see what's going on, you know what I mean? Or if you're in a panel and you're piping, all right, cool, you know what? Maybe we ain't gonna cuss you now. We're gonna cuss you later on, okay? When we're offline, okay? But what we're gonna do is we're gonna be polite and we're gonna be respectful and we're gonna keep our cool. And all of that, again, is about, again, understanding the dynamics between men and women, understanding how we want to also operate, and that you can't pull me out of position, and I don't want to pull you out of position. But most importantly, as a man, I want to stand 10 toes down and make sure that I'm good and make sure that, you know what, I lead appropriately and correctly as well, you know. So, because we've had our beef, that Married at First Sight one will always be there, you know, it's man.
Yeah, that was my biggest lesson. That was my biggest lesson learned. Boy, did they decimated me in that comment section after we did that live. You did the interview with the girl, the girl that Zach had the affair with or whatever, and then afterwards, me and you jumped on the live, and we just woo, we filleted her. I mean, at least I know I between the two of us, it was like boom, 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 boom. There was no room left. When I tell you, I looked at that comment section, I had to tell some of my family members, I just need to sit down. I mean, paragraphs. Kojo, I've never seen, like when people, listen, I'm used to, kind of rubbing people the wrong way every now and then. So, I'll get 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 comments here, there, and, whatever, people move on. It was at least, I swear, I wish I still had the picture. I took a picture. It was like at least 110 comments. Sean is rude. Sean, some nerve of him. Misogynist. Blah, 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 blah. How did the nerve of you? I mean, they went in. I just was like, please stop. They got me good, boy.
Good times. They got you good. Because I remember that happened to me probably before you guys officially joined. I think it was Married at First Sight, Chris and Paige. That season. I must have said something about Paige, and I don't think she's that attractive as you guys are making out. They lynched mobbed me. They were like, he's a colorist. I don't like black women. I'm sure I've dated all white women. I like light-skinned women. Dugga. I mean, I got filleted, flipped. I got grilled. I got taken off the grill. I got fried, and then I got put back on the grill again. They went at me differently, and it was such an interesting time. But it's character building. It's character building because those things do happen, and also you have to remember as well that, and it's all if it happened today, I'd have far more patience and empathy, and I'd probably do a video and be like, guys, ladies, listen, I understand where you're coming from. That's not how it looks like. You know what I mean? Because I understand that a lot of people were triggered by that conversation because a lot of people had their own prejudgments already. So saying something that was going to be on a very touchy subject, it can easily trigger people, right? Now, maybe when I was a couple of years ago, I don't give a fuck. If you trigger, that's your business. But I also realize now the duty of care that I have, not just to my audience, but also to get the message across that we're not trying to trigger people. We don't want people to be triggered. It may make good viewings, but it doesn't make for good relationships. And we want to bring healing and growth. So, being in that space was also interesting in that one as well. So, yeah, that was an interesting time.
Yeah, I think it taught us too, because we had to learn, like, talking about a woman's looks is very different. It's just one of those things, like, as men, we have to accept it's a double standard. Not all women may get it, but listen, women can call us fat, bald, ugly, you name it. It just goes over a lot easier. But you dance a very delicate tightrope, because you just simply had said something about that woman's wig and her husband not liking it. That set things ablaze. It's just very different. And it's something like we're constantly learning. Now, sometimes, look, we got to say what we have to say. And I think that's one thing that the women have, allowed us some grace, and just like, look, because now when it gets to discussing different couples, we'd be like, look, we as men are telling you we're not attracted to her. You can find her as cute as you want to all day long. We're the men, and we're not attracted. And then we're like, okay, you're right. I may think she's cute, but y'all don't, they'll move on. But before, like with the Page thing, they were like, they wouldn't have it. They were going to tell you she's pretty. But he just doesn't find her attractive. It's okay. It's all right. It doesn't make him a thing. And I think we just also need to be a little less quick. And I think we've gotten so much better with this, because I don't see the words in the chat as much with all these, labeling people right off the back before you hear 10 seconds and you label somebody. Come on, let's not label somebody. Let's give them a chance to speak. Let's hear more context before we jump the gun and call them something, right? Just because somebody doesn't like a brown-skinned girl or doesn't find that particular brown-skinned woman attractive doesn't make her a colorist, him a colorist. You know what I'm saying? So nevertheless, I think those are the things how we both can benefit, because sometimes women, they'll operate in their spaces and they'll start talking to each other. You'll see it happen. Oh, I think she's cute. Yeah, me too. Me too. Me too. Me too. Oh, yeah, but you forgot.
You didn't date him.
You're a woman. You know what I'm saying? Like you can see a woman is pretty, but you also have to accept the fact that it's men that that are the ones that have the opinion.
And it's funny because I think on both sides, men and women, we found that we've all tried to prove our points to each other, right? And sometimes it becomes really, really funny. Someone said we're triggered by a girl being dusty. I ain't gonna lie to you, I was triggered, so I ain't gonna lie to you. But you were right. So the ladies were right on that one. That there was, I think it's a great opportunity, right, as well, because I think, that those situations, on this channel where we are triggering each other, both parties get to learn how to start growing from those moments, man. You know what I mean? And I think, like you said, over the past years or so, it's been about, learning and growing from those perspectives, right? We've had situations where both the men and women have had to grow and learn how to do things differently. We've had to share certain things so that, hey, look, that doesn't work for us. And some women have also pushed back and said, hey, this doesn't work for us. And it's, it's interesting because, again, like I said, this is that safe space that allows those things to take place fully. If it had been in person, people would have probably been more offended and this might not go down well. People will not be seeing each other ever again. But I think with these this platform especially, you get that time and opportunity to work through some of those triggers. Because there was a lot of triggers during the course over the years. There's been a lot of triggers for conversation. And, it's been interesting because we tried to be, it's interesting to see the both parties trying to prove each other right, it's interesting because when you see both parties trying to prove the other party wrong, it spirals very quickly. But, again, it's all part of that growth. I mean, I still sometimes get into that petty bag, but,
Like medium ugly.
I don't like that one. I hate it. I absolutely detest it. I can't stand that word. I absolutely hate it. I hate it. But again, it's growth. It's about those growth moments, man. You know what I mean? And we laugh about it, so I'm not mad at it. We've developed some great friendships from being in the space, so ain't no mad at me. Okay, ain't mad at me. And then onto that, saying that, Ready to Love is starting again, so we got a new season coming up.
Yes, and I heard it's finna be carnage this season.
I heard.
You heard the same, right?
Carnage. Listen, that's what we're aiming for, a carnage season. Probably no love, but lots of carnage.
Lots of ready.
Lots of ready, but no love.
No love.
Lots of ready, no love. So yeah, we look forward to it. Oh man, it's gonna be good, man. It's gonna be good. Final points anyway, Sean. We need to get out anyway.
Yeah, no, I think that men and women friendships are valuable. I do not think that women bear the emotional load. I think that women are of value in friendships with us, and I think that great friendships with women are enriching, are mind opening, and are helpful in us having better relationships with each other, platonic and otherwise. I think there's beauty in it, but there's also balance in it, and we need balance and boundaries, together. So that's my thoughts.
Man, I appreciate it, man. Listen, audience, thank you so much for the conversation. It's been a vibe. We've had some fun. We're just catching a bit of jokes, you know what I mean? So nothing too crazy. We had a good conversation, and we'll be back again tomorrow night. Married at First Sight. As well. Ooh, excuse me. Married at First Sight tomorrow, and we might even do a little sisters one as well, because you know what, the sisters has been killing it still. So I need to catch up to that latest episode 20, because I didn't finish it, so I'm gonna get into it. But listen, audience, thank you so much. We appreciate you lot. Stay locked, stay loaded. Flora, behave yourself, okay? All right, darling. All right, and welcome to the family. We appreciate you. You gonna fit right in. All right, Sean, thank you as well. We gonna bounce out of here. Much love, much appreciation. Hey, you already know, people. Okay, you already know. Don't be here. Don't be here. Much appreciation. See you.